Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Tehillim Treasures, where we will plumb the beautiful depths and treasures of Tehillim from the very beginning of Tehillim to the end of David HaMelech's masterpiece. This episode is brought to you by Chazaq. Chazaq is an organization that helps public school children become Shomrei Torah mitzvahs, exposes them to the beauty of Torah and mitzvahs. Imagine for a moment you're standing in a store or you're walking down the street. You know the neighbor. You've known them for many years. You see their children riding their bike in the driveway. And you know they're Jewish. But now there's someone who can help them take the next step. And that is Chazaq, with countless programs after school and other wonderful programs to help expose them to the beauty of Yiddishkeit. If you know someone or know someone that knows someone that can help these children, then please email at psty@chazaq.org. This episode is also brought to you by Chickens for Shabbos. Chickens for Shabbos is exactly what it says it is, plus more. There are many people. There are Melamdim's children. There are Agunis. There are Grushis. There are families that do not have simple essentials for Shabbos and for life. Whatever they need, Chickens for Shabbos is there to provide. Please do your utmost to help in any way you can. We now continue with the next two chapters in Tehillim, Perek Pei and Perek Pei Vav, which are beautiful kapitla as we continue this timeless journey through David HaMelech's timeless treasures. We're back to the Bnei Kairach. Bnei Kairach had recorded and had composed kapitla earlier, and now we go back to them. And it's interesting, Pei actually spells the word peh. And how interesting that Perek Pei speaks of emes. And emes is a recurring theme that continues throughout Sefer Tehillim. The truth is about truth that emes is everything. Every relationship we have or we ever will have is based on truth. And if we do not speak the truth, you will not be able to have a lasting relationship with your parents, your children, your spouse, your employer, your chavrusas, your friends. Nothing. You'll ultimately, Chas v'Shalom, be left alone. Because trust is everything. Truthfulness is everything. And if somebody doesn't tell the truth, we try to be very, very tolerant in school. We try to see things, see the bigger picture. But when it comes to emes, I was told by some very, very special mechanchim, you cannot let it go. You cannot allow children to develop a tendency to lie. If they do, they're going to ruin their lives. And they get into a bad habit. And if they do, it's very, very hard to uproot. They have to relearn how to develop trust, and sometimes it's impossible to rebuild the trust that's been broken. And there's a beautiful story. The Maril Diskin, Rabbi Yechiel Spero, who was the Rav in Brisk, fought vehemently against the Maskilim. The Maskilim were people who tried to uproot Torah, tried to modernize the Torah to the point where it was no longer recognizable and abandon it entirely. And the Maskilim, knowing that he was their enemy, made his life miserable. They slandered him. They were malshin him. They said lashon hara about him. They claimed he was involved in illegal activities. They claimed that he stole large amounts of money. And they wanted to get rid of him so they could continue their terrible work. And one time, they were successful, and they managed to get Rabbi Yechiel Spero thrown into prison. Rabbi Yechiel Spero was very, very uncomfortable, terribly uncomfortable in prison. And when the Beis Halevi, Rabbi Yoshe Ber Soloveitchik, when he came to visit him, and he saw the way Rabbi Yechiel Spero was living, he fainted on the spot. Conditions were so deplorable. It was so disgusting and so terrifying that the Beis Halevi fainted on the spot. The people worked diligently to get the very, very best lawyer to make sure they could get him out of prison. The lawyer came. He was a completely modernized Jew. He had no connection to Torah or mitzvahs. And he came to visit his client in prison. Rabbi Yechiel, who was in prison, refused to look at that fellow in the face. Why? He said, I'm sorry, but he is a Rasha. He is somebody that does not keep Torah and mitzvahs. And apparently, Rabbi Yechiel knew that he was somebody who did so intentionally, completely unaffiliated. It could be that he's the best lawyer on the planet, but I cannot look at him because al tistakel b'fnei Rasha, you're not allowed to look at the face of a Rasha. And again, I want to emphasize this is somebody who was intentionally doing this. And if it meant that he would have to stay longer in prison, then so be it. Some of Rabbi Yechiel's supporters were very upset. And they said, Rebbe, you're being foolish. You're biting the hand that feeds you. But the Mariel Diskin, Rabbi Yechiel, was adamant there was nothing to discuss. And when the lawyer represented him in court, the lawyer got up, and this was his argument to defend Rabbi Yechiel. He said, Your Honor, you think that this fellow acted dishonestly? Let me tell you what he did. When I walked into his prison cell, he refused to look at me because he said, I can't look at a face of somebody who is intentionally not keeping Torah and mitzvahs. And because of that, he refused to look at me. You mean to tell me such a person would act dishonestly? To him, nothing is more important than the truth. The judge heard the case, he heard the plea, and Rabbi Yechiel was set free. If you tell the truth will set you free. It's a famous saying. And if you don't tell the truth, you will forget it. You will regret it forever and ever. We now move on to the next kapitel, Kapitel Pei Vav. And in the beginning of this beautiful kapitel, in Kapitel Pei Vav, the Malbim explains that David HaMelech gives 5 reasons why Hashem should listen to him. Number 1, Ki ani ve'evyin ani. I'm poor. I'm impoverished. And have Rachmanis on me, Hashem. I'm desperate. Have Rachmanis, have mercy on a desperate person. Number 2, Ki chassid ani. I'm a righteous person. And Hashem should listen to me because I'm a righteous person. He wasn't bragging, he was saying the truth. And Hashem should midah keneged midah, just as I am righteous, Hashem, you should act righteously with me. And the third reason, I'm putting my trust and my faith in you. Reason number 3, you should save me because I'm putting my faith and my trust in you. You know, bitachon works, and this is very, very powerful. Bitachon works even if you are a Rasha. Even if a person is a wicked person, but if he places his trust in Hashem. Let's say there's a Ganev, and a Ganev wants to succeed, and he says, Hashem, I'm putting my faith in you that I should be successful in my Gneva. But bitachon works. It's a power that Hashem placed in this world like gravity and inertia. It works. So, Rabbi Hashem, I'm putting my bitachon in you. The fourth reason is Hashem, ki eilecha ekra kol hayom, because I'm crying out to you. Tefillah works. Hashem, save me because I'm crying out to you. And finally, Hashem says, Sameach nefesh avdecha, ki eilecha Hashem nafshi esa. Rabbeinu Shalom, my one goal in life is to be your servant. I want to be an Eved Hashem. Rabbeinu Shalom, save me because I want to be your servant. And in order for me to be your servant, I have to be saved. And later in the parak, David asks Hashem to teach him the correct way. Reini Hashem darkecha, ahalech ba'amitecha, yached levavi le'yira shemecha. Teach me, Hashem, your way, so I can travel in your truth. Unite my heart to fear your name. If a person really wants to be close to Hashem and really wants to be saved by Hashem and really wants to be an Eved Hashem, then Hashem will help him. And there is a beautiful, beautiful story. A story about a fellow by the name of Tzvi who used to go to different libraries. And he would look around and find rare manuscripts and work them over, and he would spend days in the library. And one day, he's finishing his sandwich in the library, and he's benching just loud enough. And a young librarian sitting nearby, she was not religious, but she was surprised. And she says, where did you get your version of benching? This happened in Eretz Yisrael. And he said that I always bench this way. And she pointed out that he had added 2 words to the last sentence in benching. And then he added, that I not stumble. Hashem, help me, because I shouldn't be ashamed, I shouldn't be embarrassed, and I should not stumble. The phrase of Eloini Koshel was not something she had heard before, and I imagine most of you have not heard it as well. Tzvi knew it was unusual. He always benched that way because his father had benched that way. And he told her, I will find the source for this unusual wording in benching. And he searched through some of the Sidurim, and he came across a volume. He circled the words, sent those pages to the librarian in the care of the library. A while later, years later, he receives an invitation in the mail. He did not recognize it. He asked family members if they knew who it was. Nobody knew. And he was about to throw the invitation away, but he figured, listen, the wedding's near his home. He might as well go to the chasana. He goes to the chasana. He comes over to the chasana and the father. He goes over to the mechutin. He doesn't recognize any of them. Somebody taps him on the shoulder and says, are you Tzvi so-and-so? He says, yeah. He says, the Kala would like to speak to you. Well, you can anticipate what really happened. So he walked over to the Kala. He did not recognize her until she introduced herself as the girl who was the librarian. And she says, I know I look nothing like I did back then, but I want you to know I grew up in a religious home. And when I became a teenager, I began to lose interest in Yiddishkeit. And I stopped keeping mitzvahs. And before long, I kept nothing. As terrible as it sounds, I became friendly with an Arab boy. He was kind and smart. He would come to the library every day. We began dating. We spent months together. And then he asked me if I would marry him. It didn't sit well with me, even though I was not religious. I told him I need to think about it. But he said, listen, we'll go to America. You won't be as uncomfortable with living with an Arab. And he told me that he had to know by a certain day so they could move to America together and get married. The day I was supposed to give an answer is the day that I met you in the library. And a few days later, you sent me the loini koshel, that I not stumble. At that moment, I realized what I had done. I realized how terrible it was that I had left the fold, and you saved my future. V'loini koshel. Hashem listens to all of us. And if a person has a bikush ha'emes, a desire to find the truth, Hashem will answer those prayers, and you will find your way back home. Until next time, sei gesund.